Let's take a look from the 10,000-foot level of how the Symfony 2 framework is laid out. This should enable us to hit the ground running when we start writing our application. The first thing you want to look at is the directory structure of the sample application in the Symfony distribution. You can see there are some key directories here. The main ones that you'll be concerned with is the app directory, where a lot of your config files are going to reside. It's also going to hold your cache information, your logs, and some other libraries. The src, or source directory, is where your PHP code is going to reside. It's going to be broken down by bundles, and each of these bundles will be grouped like packages would be. Inside of each bundle, you'll have a directory for your controller, and you'll have a resources directory where you can put your view templates, your config files if you have any, and then any public web files. Additionally, you can store your tests in here for unit testing. The vendor directory is going to hold the core libraries for Symfony and Doctrine and anything else you might be using. In addition, and what we don't have listed here, is your public web directory, and there's also a bin directory that's going to hold the console. The model layer in Symfony is handled by Doctrine 2. If you want, you can use other methodologies. Using Doctrine 2, you can write the classes yourself, or you can use the console to generate a lot of code. You're going to need to create an entity class that's going to hold your different data types. This might be users or products or things like that. You're then going to map your class, your entity class, to connect to the database. Doctrine can actually handle the generation of your database tables and fields. Once you've created these classes, you'll use Doctrine to persist the data. Whenever you make changes to the mapping class, it will save those changes to the database. For example, if you add a new instance of an entity class, it will create an insert and insert it into your database. You can also use repositories inside of Doctrine. This can allow you to retrieve objects. Doctrine is its own application and its own project that's located at doctrine-project.org. The view layer is template-based. If you want, you can use PHP templates, but generally the Twig template engine is what a lot of people like to use. The advantage of using Twig is that it provides a lot of shortcuts. For example, if you want to output a variable, you simply wrap the name of the variable in curly braces. This would be different from the PHP methodology, where you'd need to create a PHP tag, write the echo command, and then output your variable. Twig also offers a number of filters, some mechanisms for looping and other things. All of your Twig templates will be cached. And Twig templates support inheritance, so one template can inherit another. You can even embed controllers directly inside of your templates. Let's talk about the controller and how we handle routing inside of Symfony. The routing is typically handled using configuration files, which can be YAML, XML, PHP. The URL is going to determine which controller to execute and which function of that controller will render the current page. The controller then will set up the application. It can perform a number of different actions, including talking to the database, specifically through your Doctrine models, and it can render the templates directly. Symfony supports dynamic routing, meaning you can embed variables directly in the URL. For example, this would open the products controller, call on the edit function, and pass a variable with the value 123 to that function. There are a couple of different environments built in. By default, you're going to run the app.php file. This will be the application or production environment. You can also use the _dev environment at app_dev.php. The _dev is going to have a toolbar by default, and it's also going to make sure that your cache is cleared on every execution. As you can see, Symfony has a pretty solid methodology for implementing the MVC and separation of concerns. It even goes so far as to use entirely different technologies like Doctrine and Twig for different layers of the application. Additionally, Symfony uses a lot of configuration files that can now be written in XML and sometimes PHP in addition to YAML. The idea is that this will save you coding time, but ultimately it will be up to you if this paradigm makes sense.